Hi guys, about a year and a half ago Microsoft released their dev kit for the Xbox One. So what this did was it allowed basically any retail Xbox One console to act as a dev kit unit where you basically get your own full sandbox where you can create any universal Windows application just like you would publish to the Windows App Store for a Windows Phone, Windows 10 PC, etc., and allow you to actually deploy that onto the Xbox One. And so this opened quite a bit of possibilities around being able to develop both applications and games for the Xbox. And so today we're going to take a look at those capabilities, how to get it up and running on your Xbox One, and how to actually deploy a Hello World application from Visual Studio to the Xbox. So in order to do this, we will be using obviously the Xbox One as well as a PC with Visual Studio 2017 installed. If you do not have Visual Studio installed, we won't be covering that in this video, but there are other videos out there on how to obtain Visual Studio and get it up and running. So we'll go ahead and get started by jumping over to the Xbox so that we can go ahead and get the dev mode installed. Okay, so back over on the Xbox, we're currently at the main dashboard. So the first thing we're going to do is go to Applications and make sure we don't already have the dev mode installed, which we do not. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and launch the application store. And we'll go ahead and we're just going to search. I'll pull up the search menu. And I'm just going to type in dev, D-E-V. And here you can see we have the dev mode activation. This is what we're looking for. And we're going to go ahead and install it. If you don't already own it, I think it may now cost $20. Alright, so it's installed, so we'll go ahead and launch it. And then on this screen, it's basically going to tell you it's activated, but you need to reboot the console in order to switch to that mode. And it will not overwrite anything on your system. It's basically a sandbox. So what we're doing here is we're going to go ahead and reboot. And this will take probably quite a while. You'll probably be looking at the 5 to 7 minute range for the reboot to actually happen. And basically what it's doing is it's going to shut off the console, reboot it, do some initial configuration, and you'll actually have a sandbox whenever it reboots. And so the initial black screen to the Xbox One logo is generally pretty quick, but what we'll do here is we'll go ahead and fast forward through this. And this, on my system, this took about 4 minutes of just sitting on this screen. Alright, so now we're back at the Xbox, and here you can see we're actually in the dev mode now. So this is your main dashboard. You can have multiple sandboxes. The bottom right, you're going to see your IP address. If you notice, whenever you reboot, it's a 169 IP. That is because you're basically in a brand new sandbox. So if you have Wi-Fi configured, it'll have to be reconfigured within here. If you go to the settings tab, you'll see your operating system version, your console ID, basically any settings that you need to configure will be either under Home or under the Settings tab. And then you can set whether you want to go to the dev home or the actual home as your boot up option. And here you can see there's no Xbox Live status because the Xbox Live account isn't set up in this mode yet either. So what we're going to need to do is go to home. So we're going to go ahead and launch the home screen. And this will basically take you out of this application and back to the sandbox dashboard. So in here, first thing we need to do is configure the Wi-Fi. So we'll go ahead and go into all settings. And we're going to go down to network settings. And we're going to set up our wireless network. Would you go ahead and skip through that? So now we've got our network set up. We can go back to dev home. If you notice, it's still a 169 IP. What you're going to need to do here is actually reboot the console for it to recognize your IP address. So we're just going to go ahead and restart. This restart and all future restarts will not take as long as that initial configuration. This one's actually fairly quick. So we're not going to fast forward through this one. Just give it a moment to come back up. Okay, so we've got the loading splash screen. And alright, so now we're back within the app. And so you can see here we actually have our IP address now. You can go in the settings. This is where you can turn authentication on and off. And that's mainly, there's a web portal as well as whenever you deploy applications. And then if you do have any applications installed, they will show under that games and apps section. So at this point, everything is set up to start development and deploying apps to the system. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and cut over to the PC, and I'll show you how to access the web portal as well as set up a Visual Studio project. Okay, so with the Xbox restarted, it brings us into the dev home mode. So at this point, we've got the Wi-Fi reconfigured. We've got everything else pretty much set up. The only thing left to do really to configure web portal. So this will actually allow you to manage everything from web browser. So we want to make sure this is enabled. And I have this unchecked right now. I require authentication to access the Xbox device portal. You can check this if you want and enter in a username and password. I'm just gonna, for purposes of this, I'm gonna leave that blank. It's internal to the network, so basically you don't have the authentication audio on. Not a big deal for me. So what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna show you the portal. So this is basically the portal that it'll put you in. And on the home screen here, I can see all the running apps. I can actually add applications from here. by giving it a package. We'll talk about that a little bit later, most likely in a future video. Here I can actually terminate any app that's not running, or I can actually an app that's not running, or terminate anything that's running. And then I'll just run through the tabs real quick. You can have Xbox Live test accounts. Here's File Explorer, where you can actually browse the files of the dev mode of the Xbox. View performance. So this gives you a real-time view into all of the I/O, the CPU, memory usage, network bandwidth. And then just the HTTP monitor. I have this disabled right now on the Xbox. If you enable that, then you get here. Networks. This basically gives you your IP address, all your information, all your Wi-Fi's available, and the profiles. So at any time I can actually switch between profiles and enable tracing via Fiddler. Media capture, this is basically if I'm playing on the Xbox in the dev mode and I want to capture a screenshot, I can just come here and capture a screenshot. My app crashes, all that crash data, dump of that will be here. Settings. So these are basic settings. Some of this, actually I think most of this you can configure from the dashboard directly on the Xbox. But basically you can change the host name of the device, whether you go into retail home or dev home whenever you boot it up. Color settings, audio settings. You don't want basically of 7.1, or you can turn off. And then there's also basically a scratch pad. That's what I have workspace. So that's the dashboard in a nutshell. Won't be going over it too much in this video, just as a brief overview. What we will be doing, we're going to go ahead and open Visual Studio. If you don't have Visual Studio installed, definitely need it. This is where you'll be creating applications. So we'll do File, New Project. I'm going to use C#. That's what I feel most comfortable with. And I'm going to do Windows Universal. Need to do. And we're just going to do a blank app. I'm going to go. And if you're using source control here, you can add source control. Create it. And then you're going to get this pop up. And this is basically going to say what minimum version are you require and what's your target version. So basically, I generally leave these as defaults. Usually the target version is going to give you the most recent version, the SDK. Whenever you install Visual Studio, it will install the SDKs for you, where you can get additional website. And then minimum version, just oldest version your application run on. And again, I'm leaving mine to the November up. Go ahead and hit OK. This will start creating the project. Now, if you get this pop-up, it means that you don't have dev mode enable full dev mode, which will allow you to sideload applications. So what we're going to do is we're just say developer mode. Yes. Give it a minute. Alright, so now it says developer mode. And here you can see our application has been created. So if you can open main page. So this is going to be, this will be the actual page you'll see that the app is getting. And so we'll go ahead and bring up the very first time you bring up the toolbox for Windows Universal App. You may get this firewall. They allow access. And then it'll take a moment. Toolbox. And go to all XAML controls. So these are all the controls you can have. What we're going to do is just things simple. We're just going to say hello. So what we'll do is text block. Text. Go ahead and set the look. Let's set foreground red. Easy to see. And here you can see it's actually at the top. We want to center it. Column equals 0. Right now our grid only has 101. In the event we had multiple columns. Columns. Okay. So if we save this, what we can actually do is actually just say run it on my local machine just to make sure the app is working. And obviously it's working. Now let's close that. Alright. So up here you notice we got simulator, local machine, and device that we can deploy to. So what we're actually going to property project. Check every. Here you can change your assembly name. That way, different. So we're gonna switch this to. And you can see it has auto detected our Xbox. I'm gonna go ahead and select it. If it didn't auto detect it, you could just type. And then here it tells you authentication as enabled. If it is enabled, it'll prompt you for credentials. And I'm gonna say on remote and switch over. Actually, before we do that, we do have this pop up that we have to address. So, one thing I didn't show you is there's a pin number on the Xbox that you have to. So, go ahead and cut back over to the. And we're going to go to the menu right here that says Show Visual Studio Pin. Yeah. And this gives us a pin. Gotta plug this into. Say okay. Now the deploy has started, so and it should just take a few moments to actually deploy to the Xbox. Then so it's still deploying. Okay, and there were errors. Visual Studio? That's what our errors are. So it says there are deployment errors. Do you want to continue? No, we do not want to continue. Okay. So it doesn't support the current architecture. So properties. So right now we're targeting x86. Let's work again. So here you can see deploy started, deploy failed. Okay, let's switch it to on. Changing here. Okay. That time it deployed successfully. However, it my system. Not what we wanted. So we'll go ahead and stop bugging. Remote machine. Click the Xbox again. We'll try the deploy again. If this doesn't work, then we'll switch to ARM. Still trying to deploy. Okay, deploy succeeded that time. So now it should actually start to execute it. Oh, okay. So it can't run it because I haven't set up my Xbox Live account in dev mode. So let's go ahead and head back to the Xbox and configure that. So to do that, we go actually do it this way. Do add and manage. And you just set up your Xbox Live account again. So the Xbox, whenever it's running in dev mode, it's basically a completely isolated sandbox. And as such, anything configured in the main system will not be configured in this mode. And so that includes any applications installed. Okay, now we're signed in, so I go ahead and head back to dev mode. And here you can see the app's actually installed now. So I should be able to just launch it from here. And it'll run without debugging. And there you can see, hello world. If I hit the Xbox button, I can back to the menu. Or within here I actually have a full cursor that I can play around with. Obviously this is a very basic example. There's no animation or interaction. But that's pretty much all there is to get app deployed onto the Xbox. Go ahead and close it out. Back home. And here you can see right now it's suspended because I left it running. And then any apps that you deploy will show in this list. And then if I click it, it'll resume. That's pretty much all there is to the Xbox piece of it. If I head back to Visual Studio here, just go over a couple things real quick. If you want to debug, very simple. View the code behind for this page. If I wanted to put a breakpoint here, and then I would just want to make sure it's a remote machine. Hit start. What'll happen is it'll actually run a deployment, make sure the newest version's deployed, and then it'll launch the app on the Xbox, and this debugger will attach over the network to the Xbox. Similar to how remote debugging works. And here you can see it just hit my breakpoint. So if I go back over to the Xbox, you'll see it's actually stuck at the loading page right now. I didn't put a splash screen on there. So if I go ahead and hit F5 to jump over that and go back to the Xbox, here you'll see it just launched. And it's a very simple debug. It works just like any other .NET application. And that's pretty much all there is to deploying an application onto the Xbox. You would create this like you would any other Universal Windows app. Very similar to how WPA works. With that. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and comment, and let me know if you're interested in future videos around developing applications and games, possibly some games for the Xbox. I'm more than happy to do some tutorials if there's interest, and please subscribe if you like this content.